Hobby goes deep, doesn't he? Is my microphone on? Well, it was on 30 seconds ago. It says it's on here. Oh. So the sermon for Easter, I worked really hard on this. I just want you to know. And it's interesting. You know, I've been doing this since 1965, and this year I came up with a new idea for Easter. Wow! About time. Who said that? Okay, Andy. I had a friend who did a smart aleck remark like that to me once, and I said, I'm going to remember that. And 2 years later, he was sleeping on my living room floor, and I was dripping water on his face. He goes, what? And I said, I told you I would remember. Title is, Jesus Pulls People Out of Hades. And there's the screen behind you. And Karen, can you bring that back when I get to that part of the sermon, or is that not possible?
I can bring it back.
Okay, let's bring it back later. I'm not ready to do that yet, but look at that. That's an icon from Orthodox churches. We don't know much about icons. If you grew up like I did, my parents were as interested in icons as they were statues in Catholic churches. I mean, they had the same opinion about them, that we don't need those things. Right? So, the church I grew up in, we said the Apostles' Creed every single Sunday. And we were a group of people who never changed anything in the tradition. Never. We never changed anything in the tradition because we didn't believe the tradition should be changed, except the Apostles' Creed. We took out a word. It says in the creed, he descended into Hades. Oh, no. Hades, we know you meant hell when you said Hades, right? So we didn't say Hades. That was like a swear word. So we took that out of the creed when I was growing up. Did any of the rest of you do the creed when you were young? And did you leave in that line or take out that line, or you don't even remember? Okay. So anyway, my gosh, the church couldn't ask us to swear in church by saying Hades right there, in the sanctuary. We got some people in this church who I've heard swear downstairs in the friendship room, but they won't swear. They won't swear in the sanctuary. So God, please save us from swearing, in the church. We just left the phrase out. So Jesus never descended into Hades. Part of the creed. It wasn't something that worked for us. And since we were raised to be anti-Roman Catholic, one of the real benefits in being pastor of this church is learning so much about the Catholic Church from Bob and Dan and Loretta. This family presents the kind of spirituality that comes out of the Catholic Church that's compelling to me. But there was another swear word we took out of the creed. It says, I believe in the, Holy Catholic Church, right? Well, we didn't say Catholic. we just couldn't say, we weren't going to say Catholic. We said the Holy General Church. We really work hard sometimes to put forward our biases. And if we had said Catholic and church, we might as well have joined Ascension Roman Catholic Church, which was in our neighborhood. We wouldn't have gone to the EUB Church, the Evangelical United Brethren Church. So we believed in the Holy General Church. Then I went to college, and I learned the glorious affirmation that Catholic means global. Catholic means universal. Catholic means all of creation. And what a loss because of our bias. Holy General Church doesn't do that, does it? It's a tad bland, but then sometimes we Protestants are a tad bland. I remember when there was a peace treaty between Israel and Egypt, and I was working for the National Council of Churches, and Jewish people and Muslim people and Arab people and Protestant people, all we got together for a celebration, and the Israelis did a beautiful dance celebrating the peace treaty, and the Muslims did a beautiful dance celebrating, this is in St. John the Vine in New York, beautiful, beautiful. And a Protestant got up and explained why the peace treaty was important. And the guy standing next to me turned and said, "Damn those Puritans, Joe." we couldn't even dance. We couldn't even dance. What a marvelous affirmation, Catholic. What a marvelous affirmation of the church beyond the local neighborhood, beyond, very important, beyond our provincial thinking. I also learned that Hades was not the same as hell. I don't know why I had to be 18 years old before I figured, well, I do know why. But the Dante's Inferno, anybody know what century did Dante write in? And anyway, he has 9 circles of hell, and they all get worse and worse and worse and worse until we get to the Oh, I thought you said something, Andy.
I think that I don't remember what that was.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Will you look it up and tell me when I get back? Okay, thank you. And that Dante's Inferno became so prominent in our culture that hell began to be more important than Hades. Well, in our tradition, Hades is different. Hades is Sheol, S-H-E-O-L, the place where people are gathered, people who have died, all people who have died, people of all faiths, people of all ethnicities, people of all lengths, people of all strengths. Everybody who's died is waiting for the general resurrection, when all will be raised up and all of creation will be raised up. What a wonderful image that is, huh? Everything, all of creation will be raised up, and we lost that to a multi-layered sin. Sometimes I think our faith is way too focused on sin. I think it is. I think we need to talk about the brokenness that sin is, the alienation that is sin, the estrangement, but I think we major on some pretty minor things sometimes, and we're always focusing on how bad we are. I believe in the original blessing, not original sin, and we can talk about that for a long time if you want. So the resurrection, when you look at it as Sheol, the resurrection is not an event between an individual and God, and that's how we think about it, isn't it? That somehow I have a relationship with the divine, and when I die, then I raise up. And the more prominent view in the Bible, which we've lost because of Dante and some other things, is that all are waiting to be raised up together in community, and I think that's wonderful. It's a community event that they thought was coming soon. The other thing I want to say about Easter, it's not a one-day event. It's not 1 out of 365 days. Easter, that raising up out of brokenness, that raising up out of estrangement, that raising up out of the things that thwart our beings, happens every single day. That power of the resurrection is with us all the time. All the time. And so I think that Millie and all the women, you should be wearing those bonnets every day, because Easter is every day. I want to see bonnets on your head 360. Maybe not, huh? I'm going to present Easter as a 3-day event today. On Holy Saturday, the day after Good Friday, and the day before Easter, Holy Saturday. Did any of you ever grow up even hearing of Holy Saturday?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, some yeah and some nah. According to the Orthodox Church, like Russian Orthodox and Greek Orthodox, Christ went to Hades to reach out his hands and start pulling people out of Hades. That's the metaphor. Isn't that a wonderful, powerful story? I would like the screen now. Thank you. Okay, so how many of you have icons? How many of you appreciate icons? How many of you know anything about icons? This is a part of the spirituality of Orthodox people. And I want to point out some things in this icon that help us to understand it. Christ's robes are flowing up. That represents that he descended into Hades, okay? The golden bars at his feet, do you see at the bottom of his, underneath he's standing on rocks. On Christ the solid rock. Okay, below that are the golden bars are the gates of Hades, which Christ has broken and torn apart. The skeletal figure, I don't know if you can see it from the distance, down at the bottom, okay, oh yeah, I see it, represents death. And what is death? Is chained up. Death no longer has power. Wow! Wouldn't it be great for us to live without the fear of death, without the dominance of death? And Christ is pulling out Adam and Eve. And this is a liberated one. Some of the icons have Christ pulling out Adam, and Eve's holding on to Adam and this icon, Christ is pulling out Adam. Who do Adam and Eve represent? That's humankind. Humankind. Christ is pulling humankind out of Hades. And there's three historic figures to be liberated. On the left is King David and King Solomon and John the Baptist. You see how they tell the whole story just in this one icon? And the figures on the right, this is exciting to me, represent the prophets and the saints from the Hebrew Scriptures. Moses, Abel the shepherd, and the three who were in the fiery furnace. Their names are Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. All in one icon. We get to see the story. And the blue shape around Christ, you see that? Is called a mandoria. Why is it called that? That's Italian for almond, which is the shape. The mandoria is the uncreated eternal light of Christ. Uncreated. Christ was in the creation in the Big Bang 13.8 billion years ago. The light was in that creation 13.8 billion years ago. Now, it's important to understand that icons are not a photo recording. This isn't a photo of anything. This is an art piece that an artist created to tell the story of Jesus on that day that wasn't part of my tradition. After Good Friday, before Easter, when Jesus went to Hades to begin the liberation of people from death. Okay, now the third day, Good Friday, Easter, Holy Saturday, Easter. Christ offers his hands. In that thing, Christ's hands are pulling Adam and Eve out. His hands. Well, on the first Easter Sunday, 2,000 years ago or so, Christ offers his hand to Mary, his good friend. She's looking right at him, and she doesn't even know who he is. He's changed. He's Jesus Christ. He's changed. He offers his hand to pull her out into new life. He offers a hand to those of his friends who are behind a locked door. They're so afraid. They went to a room somewhere and they bolted it because they were afraid that the Roman government, who had just killed their leader, would come after them. On Easter morning, Christ offers his hand to the strangers Easter night who are walking to Emmaus. They don't recognize him. Do you not know what happened in Jerusalem? That's the question. And then when they get to Emmaus, he offers a hand to do what? To break bread. And then they recognize him. Jesus offers a hand to his friends who were fishing by the Sea of Galilee, in the Sea of Galilee. Those were fisher people who had left fishing to follow Jesus. And now, without a sense of a future, They went back to what they knew how to do. They went back to fish. And Jesus, with his hands, is frying catfish. I have it on from an unreliable source. Frying catfish for their breakfast. And there's even good news. It's Easter Sunday here. The risen Christ reaches out to all of creation and reaches out to us to pull us out of our fear of death, out of our grief for all kinds of losses. The risen Christ pulls us out of our willingness to compromise our values when we want the strength to hold on to our values. The risen Christ pulls us out of our fear that we're too young, or too old, or too small, or too tall. The risen Christ pulls us out of those excuses we make that we can't make changes that we need to make in our lives in order to live the way we feel called to live. That's today. You get it? Today. We don't have to do anything today. We can just receive God's love and shout as often and as loud as we want, Christ is risen. Christ is risen indeed. Christ is risen. I want to hear you. Christ is risen indeed. Christ is risen. Christ is risen indeed. That's all we have to do today. Accept the reality that we are not stuck. We can live in new ways. So now on to Easter Monday. Anybody ever heard of Easter Monday before? I think I just made it up. But anyway, if I didn't, if I got it from someplace, thank you, whoever gave it to me. We become the hands of Christ. We become the hands of Christ. We are disciples of Christ. We aren't people who say, well, you know, most of the time I don't think about Christ. Every once in a while I think about Christ. No, we're disciples of Christ every day, every moment, trying to live our life for the sake of others as Jesus lived. And we have some work to do. We have some work to do. We need to join with Christ to pull people out of war. What is it we can do to stop the horrible war in Ukraine, against Ukraine? What is it we can do? Are we without power? No. The resurrection is in us. We become the hands of Christ to pull people out of the renewed dangers of coronavirus. Now, can I just be as clear as possible? I'm not interested in talking about whether people should mask or not. I'm not interested in talking about whether people should be vaccinated or not. I got my 4th vaccination at Hope West in Grand Junction on Friday. I believe in them. Some of you don't. That's okay. But whatever we feel about masks or vaccination or the coronavirus, my question is, what are we doing with our hands to stop the terrible dying that's going on all around the world because of the virus? What are we doing with our hands to stop our own silence in the face of hate and violence against transgender persons? Now, folks, transgender persons aren't only marginalized. Transgender persons are being killed. 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 What are we going to do about that? With our hands, are we going to say, oh, well, that's interesting. You know, some people have a tough life. No, we've got to figure out what we're going to do to stop the hatred and the marginalization and the killing of transgender people. On Easter Monday, we need to decide what we're going to do with our hands, Christ's hands, to stop our blindness to victims of community and domestic violence. Blindness comes in at least 2 forms. Sometimes we can't see. Sometimes we choose to be blind. We look the other way. We deny. It is a reality in our community. It's a reality in families within our congregation. It's a reality in so many communities and families that there is domestic violence. What are we going to do with these hands of Christ that we are? And what are we going to do with our unwillingness to ally with those facing oppressions of all kinds? We kind of just step away, don't we? Until that oppression comes into our lives, and then we understand it in new ways. As in our Holy Saturday icon, Christ pulls people out of death into life every day. Today, tomorrow, every day. Yesterday on Holy Saturday, without us knowing what he was doing, Jesus was in Hades pulling people out of death. It's like prevenient grace. That's such a big concept in Methodist thinking. Wherever we get involved in things, Christ is already there. Wherever we get involved, God is already there. This is Resurrection Sunday. Yesterday, Jesus was pulling people out of Hades. Today is Easter Sunday, and we praise God for our resurrection when Christ's hands reach out to liberate us from death and from the fear of death, all the deaths that hold us. Tomorrow on Easter Monday, a new holiday, we join our hands with Christ, committed to the liberation of all. Committed to the liberation of all who are. Committed to the liberation of all that is. Christ is risen. Christ is risen indeed. We are risen. We are risen indeed. Amen.